No nation in the world has surpassed the Tatars with its glory or the greatness of its conquests. This nation is truly the ruler of the universe. This victorious nation lacks only historians to glorify its great deeds. How many immortal exploits are buried in the darkness of oblivion? How many empires which we do not even know they created? This belligerent nation, busy only with its real glory, confident of eternal victories, did not care to consolidate the memory of their past conquests in the future. Montesquieu, French philosopher. To the north of China was the Great Steppe, where the nomads lived for centuries. They lived in felt yurts, raised cattle, and ate their meat and milk. They were called Tatars and Huns or Hunnu. They were good warriors and riders. The nomads worshipped the great Tengri, the eternal sky which created the surrounding world. Tengrianism is a system of views on the world, which determine the actions of people. This is the unity of man and God, the harmony of man and nature, man and society, honoring the spirit of ancestors. According to the English historian Edward Parker, a long time ago, a single nomad tree was divided into Turkic-speaking peoples, Huns, later Turks, Uyghurs, and Tungus, speaking peoples, Dunhu, later Xianbi, Wuhan, Manchus. At the same time, these people were always close in spirit and culture. First mention of the Huns is known from Chinese sources. The Chinese emperor Yuan Tianhui fought against them. In the 27th century BC, almost 5,000 years ago, from 400 BC to 200 BC, there are records of the wars of the Chinese with nomads. To protect the country from the raids of the Huns, China built the Great Wall of China, which later remained as a line of the millennial confrontation and struggle of two great peoples, the Hunnu and ancient Chinese. Millions of human lives sacrificed to this wall. In the middle of the 3rd century BC, China was united in a single state, the Han Empire. At the same time, the Hunnu created their own state. The first Khagan of the Huns was Duman. In 209 BC, his son Mode became Khagan. The full title of the emperor of the Huns is Tengri Kutu Yanye, which means the great son of heaven. Tungus tribes of Dunhu lived to the east of the Huns. Tungus, having learned about the change of the rulers of the Huns, demanded a best horse. Mode's courtiers were against it. Mode turned out to be a cunning strategist. He ordered to give the horse away. After a while, the Tungus demanded one of Mode's wives. Mode gave his wife. When the Tungus demanded to give up the neutral territory locating between them, Mode said, "The earth is the basis of the state. Can it be given?" He quickly assembled the army and defeated the enemy. These words, Mode entered the history of the Turks as a great statesman. Mode also proved to be a great conqueror. The people called him Bahadur, which in Turkic means commander, winner. Mode conquered southern territories from China, which were previously taken from the Huns. He conquered new lands from Korea in the east and to East Turkestan in the west, and created a huge nomadic empire. The Chinese empire recognized the power of the Huns as equal to the Han Empire. Chinese empire shuddered under the onslaught of the Huns and paid tribute annually, opening barter trade on the borders, beneficial to the Huns. The constant struggle for control over the Great Silk Road was conducted between China and the Huns. When the Huns lost the Khyber Pass through which the caravan routes passed, they cried, "This is our land." The Huns periodically raided China but did not try to conquer China, and China knew about it. Unable to defeat the Huns by force, cunning Chinese diplomacy by bribing the Han leaders split them. In the year of 48, the 8 southern Hunnu clans have elected their Khagan. The Hunnu Empire have been divided into northern and southern. The southern Huns assumed a vassal dependence on China and began to fight against the northern Huns. The Chinese dragged the Tungus Yunbi in the war with the northern Huns. In 155, the Norse Hunnu Khaganate disintegrated after more than 300 years of its existence. In 215, China annexed the South Hunnu Khaganate. After the collapse of the Hunnu Khaganate, part of the Huns remained in China. Part of the Huns mingled with the Tungus Yunbi. Scientists for a long time considered the Xianbi dictionary discovered in the modern time by the Mongolian, but in reality it turned out to be Turkic. This was the cultural influence of the Huns. According to the famous scholars Klaproth and Shavana, the nomadic tribes of northern China in the first millennium spoke in the Turkic language. Part of the Huns settled in the territory of modern Kazakhstan. Part of the Huns settled on the Volga River, where in 200 years they will shake the whole world. After the collapse of the Hunnu Empire, some of the nomads settled on the Volga River's basin. For about 200 years, they lived peacefully. In 370, the Huns launched an attack to the west, where the Goths lived, the East Germans. The Goths were defeated, some of them submitted to the Huns, the other part went to the Roman Empire. In 378, the Huns approached the borders of the Roman Empire. In 395, the Roman Empire split into the Western and Eastern. In 395, the Huns invaded the Roman Empire in the Balkans and also in Asia through the Caucasus. They defeated the Romans and invaded Syria. In 422, the Huns captured Pannonia, Hungary, and reached the river Rhine. In 434, Attila, the son of Rua, became the Khagan of the Huns. Attila was a great commander and diplomat. In 437, the Huns conquered the German kingdom of Burgundians. 441 and 447 years, Attila invaded the Eastern Roman Empire in the Balkans and won. Emperor Theodosius II was forced to make peace with the Huns on harsh conditions with the payment of an annual tribute. In 451, Attila began a war against the Western Roman Empire. The reason for war was the refusal of the Emperor Valentinian to give his sister Honoria in marriage for Attila. At the same time, Honoria conducted secret negotiations with Attila. Honoria, through marriage with Attila, expected to obtain the right to rule the empire. Attila invaded Gaul, modern France. In June 451, the Battle of the Huns with the Romans took place in the Catalan fields. It was the biggest battle in history. The losses were enormous on both sides. The Eastern Germanic and Slavic tribes fought on the side of the Huns, the Western Germanic and Gallic tribes on the side of the Romans. No one won at the battle. 452, after crossing the Alps, Attila invaded Italy. Having seized the north of the country, the Huns approached Rome. Rome was in a panic. The empire asked for peace. Emperor Valentinian sent an embassy headed by Pope Leo I to Attila. Attila received the embassy. The Pope, on behalf of all Christianity, asked Attila to mercy Rome, a city with world culture, and expressed an agreement to pay tribute on any terms. Attila and the Pope found mutual understanding. Attila announced that the Pope is the wisest man in the world. At the end of the meeting, they embraced. Attila pardoned Rome, thus diplomacy saved Rome. Pope Leo was canonized by the Church, becoming the Holy and Great. Attila was a great states ruler. In a short time, he created a huge empire. In the ancient German ballad, the saga of the Nibelungs, Attila is sung as a German king under the name Etzel. Having conquered the Germanic tribes of Central Europe, the Huns weakened their onslaught on the Roman Empire and probably stopped the full Germanization of southwestern Europe. In 453, Attila died. His sons could not keep the empire. In 454, it began to disintegrate. In 552, the Ashina clan united the Turkic tribes and established a new state. Turks mastered the production of iron, manufactured weapons and military armor, created a well-armed cavalry. The spiritual worldview of the Turks, as well as ancestors of the Huns, was Tengrianism, veneration of the great god Tengri. According to legend, the Turks were descended from a wolf, so the wolf's head was depicted on their banners. In 552, the first Khagan was Bumin. A year later, his son Mugan became the next Khagan. Mugan began the expansion of the state, defeating the Jujan, the Khitan and Ephthalites. In 565, the Turks defeated the Persians and captured Sogdiana. In 576, the Turks began a war with the Avarian Khaganate in the west. The Turks reached the Crimea and captured the North Caucasus. In 578, the Turks launched an invasion of China. China was defeated and was forced to pay tribute. By 580, a huge nomadic empire was created from the Pacific Ocean to the North Caucasus. The Khaganate had diplomatic relations with China, Persia, Byzantium. The state structure was specific. Power was transferred not to the son but to the younger brother and was approved by Kurultai. The princes received control of the small parts of the empire. Such a system prevented the accession to the throne of the underage prince. The Turks had their own runic writing. The Turks created an effective system for controlling the army consisting of heavy and light cavalry, which enabled them to win great victories. The capital was Karakorum. Chinese diplomacy by bribing the nobility split the Turkic Khaganate. In the year 600, the Khaganate disintegrated into the eastern and western Khaganates. In 630, the Eastern Khaganate suffered an unexpected defeat from China and lost its independence. In 604, the Tundrabgu Khan became a Khan of the Western Khaganate, with a headquarters in the town of Chach, Tashkent. In 626, he began a war with Iran, supporting the Byzantines. 628, Tundrabgu Khan invaded Transcaucasia, captured the city of Tiflis, Tbilisi. In 631, he died. The Western Khaganate unrests began. Taking advantage of the weakening of the Western Khaganate in 640, the Chinese Empire started a war. Western Turks were defeated and fell into a vassal dependence on China. In 679, the Turks of the Eastern Khaganate raised an uprising against the Chinese Empire. They said, "We were a powerful nation. Where is our superpower?" In 693, the war against China began. In 701, the Turks defeated the Chinese in North China. In 703, the Tang Empire made peace with the Turks. In 716, Bilge Khan became Khagan, who together with his brother Kultegin and advisor Ton Yukuk began to revive the Second Turkic Khaganate. Despite China's policy of making a split in the Khaganate, this great trio triumphed over external and internal enemies and established peace. These great deeds are carved in Turkic runes in the monument of Kultegin in 732. In 745, on the side of the Turkic Khaganate, a new state was created, the Uyghur Khaganate. The state was created by the Avar Turks in 562. The founder of the state was a Khagan Bayan I. Avars are nomads who did not recognize the power of the Great Turkic Khaganate. Avars fighting with the Turks retreated to the west. They conquered the Turkic tribes of the Black Sea region of the Uturgurs, Kuturgurs, and others, which remained after the collapse of the Hunnu Empire. The Avars conquered the German kingdom of Gepids, subdued the Slavic tribes, and settled on the Middle Danube and Pannonia, Hungary. In a short time, the Avars by force and diplomacy created a huge empire which included modern Hungary, Austria, Serbia, Macedonia, Croatia, Romania, Ukraine, Belarus. The Avars raided Central Europe, waged wars with the Franks, and captured King Sigebert. The Avars raided Central Europe, waged wars with the Franks, and captured King Sigebert. The Avars collected tribute from conquered peoples. The Avars had a battle-worthy cavalry and created a fortress system in Pannonia. The Avars used Slavs as their foot troops. During the Avars, the Slavs began the settling of the Balkan Peninsula. Since 582, the Avars have waged wars with Byzantium and have captured their cities. 626, the Avars supported Persia in the war against Byzantium and together with the Slavs besieged Constantinople. The assault ended in failure. The Avars suffered defeat. This led to strife within the state and its weakening. One of the reasons for the decline was corruption in the state apparatus. 788, the Franco-Avar War began, which was going on with varying success. In 791, the king of the Franks, Charlemagne, led a campaign against the Avars. In 796, the Franks captured the capital of the Avar and captured the treasures accumulated during the century. Avars stubbornly resisted. The entire Avar nobility died. The fighting continued until 803. Taking advantage of the weakening of the Avar, the Bulgarian king Krum seized the eastern lands of the Khaganate and assimilated the remnants of the Avar. In 899, Pannonia was conquered by Hungarians. The remnants of Avar merged with them. In the ancient Russian chronicle, The Tale of Bygone Years, there is the expression, perished as Obra. The Slavs called the Avar as Obra. It seemed impossible, but the great and invincible Avar people perished. In 651, Turun Khan of the Turkic dynasty Ashina created the Khazar state and became the first Khagan. The capital of the state was the city of Khan Balik of the river Itil, Volga. The Khaganate occupied the territory on the west, between the Danube River and the Black Sea, in the east up to the territory of modern Kazakhstan. The Khazars built new cities through the development of trade. In the east there was a vassal state of Turk Bulgarians, Volga Bulgarian. Bulgarian Khan Kubrat led a separatist policy toward the Khazars. In 651, the Khazars invaded Bulgaria and finally annexed it to the Khaganate. Asparuh, one of the sons of Kubrat Khan, led his horde to the Danube and united with the Slavs, created a new state of Bulgaria in 681. In 652, the war began with the Arab Caliphate, which lasted for 150 years. The war continued with a varying success. The border of the fighting was the city of Derbent in the Caucasus. Khazars halted the expansion of the Arabs into Eastern Europe. At the end of the 8th century, the Khazars allocated the lands in the west for the Magyars, who spoke in the Ugric Turkic language. In 899, these fearless people created their own state, Hungary. In 879, the Scandinavian Vikings seized the city of Kiev on the Dnieper, creating the first Russian state. First Russian princes called themselves Khagans. This was the cultural influence of the Khazars. Nomads were Tengrans, and the conquered peoples confessed Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. The Transcaucasians were inhabited by Jews who fled Iran in the 6th century. The Khazars allowed them to live in the territory of Khaganate. The Jewish community was engaged in trade and accumulated great wealth. Gradually, the Turkic dynasty of Ashina became related with the Jews. In 890, the Turkic elite adopted a new faith, Judaism. After the adoption of Judaism, Jews from the different countries began to flock to the Khazar Khaganate. Entire Jewish neighborhoods appeared in the capital. The change of religion of the Ashina dynasty led to the spiritual crisis of the Khazars. The relations between the Khaganate elite and the nomadic nobility became aggravated. The Khaganate began to weaken. In 985, the Kiev prince Sviatoslav, having concluded the alliance with the Turkic Pechenegs and Turkic Oguzes, attacked the Khazar Khaganate and defeated him. Thus ended the Turkic dynasty of Ashina. After the collapse of the Turkic Khaganate in 744, the Uyghurs came to power, the union of the Turkic Oghuz tribes, creating a new state, the Uyghur Khaganate. The first Khagan was Kutluk Kul Bilge Khan. He restored the capital of the Turks, Karakorum. In 745, his son Moyanchur came to power. In 755, he forcibly united the Turkic tribes of the Tatars, Karluks, Basmals, Turgeshes, creating a nomadic state from western Manchuria to the Black Irtysh. The ruling family was the Oghuz Yaglikar. The worldview of the Oghuzes was Tengrianism, the cult of the sky. In 755, a civil war began in China. The insurgent people inflicted a series of defeats to the government troops. The emperor of the Tang dynasty turned to Khagan Moyanchur for military assistance in suppressing the insurrection. The civil war in China lasted 10 years. The loss of population was enormous. It fell from 52 million to 17 million. The Uyghurs defeated the rebels, receiving an annual tribute from China in the amount of 20,000 pieces of silk per year. In those days, silk was equal to the price of gold. The Great Silk Road passed through the Uyghur Khaganate. The Khaganate became rich due to silk trade. Culture crafts developed. Uyghurs were one of the most cultured Turkic peoples. They replaced the runic alphabet with the new Uyghur alphabet. During the war campaign to China, the Uyghur Khagan adopted a new faith, Manichaeism. It is a mixture of Zoroastrianism, Christianity, and Buddhism, which rose in the Middle East in the 240. Manichaeism was adopted by the aristocracy of the Khaganate. In Manichaeism, God is absent, his place is occupied by light and darkness. The world is not a creation of God which deserves love, but it's subject to destruction, which led to the destruction of the family. This contradiction between Tengrianism and Manichaeism led to a spiritual crisis, to the breach between the upper and lower classes. In 840, there was an internal turmoil, a coup d'etat. The Kyrgyz invaded the country, the Khaganate disintegrated. Some Uyghurs left to the south, creating the Ganzhou Principality in 902, which existed until 1028. Another part of the Uyghurs captured the Turfan Oasis, creating a new state that existed until 1270. Part of the Oghuzes in the 10th century established a Nayman state, which existed until 1204. Part of the Oghuzes in the 11th century was separated in the state of Karyids, which existed until 1203. In the future, Naimans and Karyids entered the empire of Genghis Khan. After the collapse of the Uyghur Khaganate in 840, the Turkic tribes of Karluks, Turgesh, Yagma, and others created a new state of Karakhanids in Simirechi and Kashgaria. The first Khan was Bilge Kul Kadir Khan. In 910, Khan Satug Bagra Khan made Islam the official religion of the Khaganate. This was the first Turkic Muslim state. In 990, the Karakhanids launched a war with the Samanids, the Iranian state in the west. In 999, the Samanids were defeated by the Turks. The Turks captured Bukhara and Samarkand. The state began to expand. The Amur Darya was a border in the west, the Irtish River in the east. The Karakhanids also waged wars with the Seljuk Turks and the Ghaznavi Turks for the territory of the Samanids that remained after the dissolution of the Samanid state until the maintenance of peace. Karakhanids also waged wars with the Seljuk Turks and Ghaznavi Turks for the territory of the Samanids that remained after the dissolution of the Samanid state until the maintenance of peace. Growth and expansion of cities such as Bukhara, Samarkand, Urgench, Termez began during the ruling of the Karakhanids. Architectural monuments of those times were preserved in Bukhara. Culture and literature developed in Turkic and Persian languages. In 1069, the famous book Kutatgu Bilik, The Science of How to Be Happy by Yusuf Balasaguni was published. Another remarkable monument was the book by Mahmud Kashgari about the Turkic language, Divan Lughat at-Turk. One of the trends of Islam was Sufism, which was closer to the worldview of the Turks, confessed Tengrianism that was different from Orthodox Islam. The founder of Sufism was Khoja Ahmed Yasavi. The Sufi teaching believes that the soul of a person is a part of the soul of a god that has flowed into a person, and the main goal of believers is to reconnect with God. Yasavi was born in 1103, lived in Bukhara. In 1159, he moved to the city of Yassi in order to live alone and to serve to the god. In 1166, he died. Yasavi left 4,400 hikmat, verses, in the Turkic language. In 1400, the great conqueror Timur built a mausoleum on his grave. The city of Yassi after his death began to be called Turkestan. In 1042, the Karakhanid Khaganate split into the western and eastern parts. In 1210, the western Karakhanid Khaganate was disintegrated. 1212, the eastern Khaganate was disintegrated as well. 962, the Turkic commander Alptegin, who served in the Samanid state, fell into disgrace and went to the city of Ghazna, modern Afghanistan, creating a new independent state. In 977, Sebuktegin, the son-in-law of Alptegin, sat on the throne. Sebuktegin began to carry out military campaigns to northern India, defeated the troops of Indian princes and captured the northern territories of India. In 998, Mahmud, the son of Alptegin, became the Sultan of the Ghaznavids. Mahmud turned out to be a talented statesman and commander. Under the blows of the Turks Ghaznavids, the state of the Samanids ceased to exist. The territory of the Samanids to the Amur Darya river was captured by Mahmud Ghaznavi. In 1000, Mahmud Ghaznavi began the conquest of India. In 1009, the country was conquered up to the Indus River. By 1025, Sultan Mahmud created a huge empire from Iraq and the Caspian Sea in the west to the Ganges River in India, from the Aral Sea in the north to the Indian Ocean in the south. Ghazna became one of the largest cities in the east. The state religion was Islam, the state language was Persian, the top of the state was Turkic, the army was Turkic. Sultan Mahmud paid much attention to culture and science. He founded the first university in Ghazna. Mahmud invited famous scientists of the east, Al-Biruni, Firdausi, and others. In 1030, Sultan Mahmud died. His son Masud took the throne. Since 1040, wars began with the Seljuk Turks, who came from the territory of Kazakhstan. The Seljuks won a number of victories, which led to the weakening of Ghaznavid state. In 1192, the empire ceased to exist.